I'm going to restart this video. I'm just going to focus on the fact that we have this Facebook site called Mission Save Australia. Last night, for the record straight, Adrian, the person that we are talking about, regardless of who he is, that's not the point. The point is, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. The point is the law applies to all of us. We cannot set up an illegal busker site, and we cannot go around breaking the law, which is the local government laws. Now, Mission Save Australia says an Aboriginal busker has a licence to work in Cavill. This is what they say, which is this is false, and they're spreading non-factual information. Aboriginal buskers have a licence to work in Cavill. The Christians are coming in with their foghorns and are illegal operating in Cavill. Well, by the way, I'm not in Cavill. Cavill starts from the Hungry Jack's doors and across to the McDonald's doors, and then it goes down towards the other end, not towards the beach. From Hungry Jack's doors across to McDonald's doors up towards the beach is not Cavill. It is not considered a Cavill. If you go to the Gold Coast City Council and get the map, you will see what I'm talking about. And on that map, it has actually the designated busker sites. And if you have a look at that map, what I purely did, I asked, through my mic, which I have on video, I said that we must respect other people's culture. You are not respecting other people's culture by taking the law into your own hands. That's not what it's about. We should never take the law into our own hands. We should never should never say things that are false. The Aboriginal busker has a licence to work in Cavill. The Christians are coming in with their foghorns and illegally operating in Cavill. Well, I want to rebut what Mission Save Australia said, because that's false. I have a permit from the Gold Coast City Council for public speaking. The other group, which is another Christian group that I have nothing to do with, that I believe they have a public assembly permit from the Queensland Police. If that's right or wrong, I'm not sure, but the Queensland Police have given the other Christian group a public assembly permit, which anyone has rightfully can go and apply for one. It's a Queensland Public Assemblies permit, and you apply the Public Assembly permit through the Queensland Police, which the other group does. So here we have Mission Save Australia says Aboriginal buskers have a licence to work in Cavill. The Christians are coming in with their foghorns and are illegally operating in Cavill. And I will say that is a lie, and that is not the correct statement. Mission Save Australia. And then it says the preacher was bagging out Hungry Jacks at first. No one was bagging out anyone. What was happening is there was an accountability. Now, Linda was packing up, and I would believe what she was doing was she was packing up to move to an allocated busker site, which was on the other side, and there was being no more of holding people to account. I don't believe at any stage that there is any sort of racism or any sort of vilification by holding a person accountable. If we can't hold people to account or have an accountability even to ourselves, then that's corruption, and that's certainly going to lead to a lot of problems. If you're going to have a problem within an institution and you know that something wrong is happening and you can't be accountable, then that's a corruption. You need to have accountability. You need honesty. You need integrity. You need the respect. And to have the respect is to have accountability, to be honest and have an integrity. And to realise that you need not to step outside of the law. Now, we need to act with restraint, and we need to act in a way that is not being immature or not sending a message out that we are being non-restraint, and that it's not a good message to send out to people. This is how Aboriginal people behave when they don't get what they want. You know, a 2-year-old child, when they don't get what they want, they carry on in a very immature way and they chuck tantrums. There's a similarity here. There is a right way and there is a wrong way to go about something. This is not about racial vilification. This is about respecting the law. Honestly, this is about abiding by the Gold Coast City Council, which have given to Gold Coast Service Paradise Alliance. The Gold Coast City Council has given rules and regulations to the Service Paradise Alliance. And they know the busker sites. They're little gold disc that are there on the busker sites. And they have been allocated by the Gold Coast City Council, and that has gone through a process. And neither phone boxes of Hungry Jack's and the water fountain there, that is not a busker site. Ask the Gold Coast City Council, is that a busker site? They will tell you, no, it's not a busker site, neither phone box and the water fountain near Hungry Jack's. The busker site's across the road and down a little bit. That's the legal busker site. So this is not basically anything but being taken out of proportion. I believe that Mission Save Australia, they say about saving Australia. Well, they're not saving Australia. They're actually saying pretty bad things. I have rebutted what they have said. As I've said here, this is a lie. The Gold Coast City Council has issued permits to a public speaker, brackets, preachers and other groups that have public assembly permits from the Queensland Police. I've also said, what about the Hare Krishnas? They are not the Christians and they believe in God, but they have foghorns, so they are mission. So you are the Mission Save Australia. Be religious in tolerance because they also share their beliefs. So the simple fact is you can't start being intolerant of religions. If you don't like what someone is saying, well, you can just keep walking. If you don't like what someone is saying, you can just keep walking and ignore them. But this Adrian Berrigumbi, he's saying, well, I want to do my busking. And he said on this video, he said he doesn't need to take money from people. Do you know what he's doing when he's busking? He's taking money from people. So there's a contradiction in the video. He's taking money from people. And I challenge him that, you know, the only person I need is God. God is my bank. God will bless me. The Lord Jesus Christ, will bless me. But Adrian Berrigumbi sits there and makes utter lies. Linda and Adrian, they get enough money from the government. We all know that the government compensates and has always given money towards Aboriginal people and have looked after them quite well to the best of their abilities. There could be more done, but at the end of the day, if you are, you know, you've got to realise that there is social justice, there's also injustices, and there's also human rights. But I'd say that Mission Save Australia has done a very wrong and injustice. They not only singled out Hare Krishnas and other religions. The question is that I will be contacting the shopping centre in charge of the Centro Shopping Centre in Melbourne, and also will be speaking to them about how businesses encourage. If you have a business, you do not encourage people to behave in a racist and a riot manner, and you do not get involved with that. But I have one business called Jack's Kebabs, and ever since that I have legally been where I have legally been, and my permit states that I'm allowed to be there, they have been racially taunting, religiously taunting, and also encouraging and inciting of violence. And when this Adrian Aboriginal guy came up, Adrian Berrigumbi came up and started ranting and raving and carrying on, which is ridiculous, I stood at the back of their door, which is inside the shopping centre area, but I'm entitled to go and get shelter there when it's raining, or to for protection or what have you. I'm entitled to stand there. I just wanted to get out of the picture. That's the reason I was there. And then when he had left, I'd come back because I'd rather ignore it. Now, what I don't understand is these people in Jack's Kebabs are clapping, yelling out, and actually cheering on the people to be racist and inciting violence. Now, if I had a business like Jack's Kebabs, I certainly wouldn't be taking sides, and I certainly would not be getting involved, and I'd certainly be minding my own business. But Jack's Kebabs at the top end of the Cavill Mall, which is not Cavill Mall, but it's at the end of Centro, they make false allegations and false complaints because they have their religion, which they are entitled to their religion, and there must be tolerance, and there must be give and take. You must respect one another, but they don't respect anybody. They have their own ways of doing things. They want to step outside of the law. I would like to see Jack's Kebabs just go about their business and stop getting involved in what's going on the street. Because you might as well close the doors, close your business, and come out onto the street and start creating issues. The simple fact is I will speak to the Centro Shopping Centre bosses in Melbourne, because they are part of a big chain, and I'll be having a chat to them about this issue. It doesn't matter who's with a public speaking permit. It doesn't matter. The problem is this is not a Gold Coast City Council matter. This is to do with the shopping centre. And as far as I'm concerned, I will be dealing with that matter, and I'll be dealing with the fact of inappropriate abuses of their services and etc. And I'll follow that up. But I will be probably speaking with the owner if I do get the possibility, and I'll just explain that, do you allow your stuff? You know, you go to a shopping centre and you see a kebab business in a shopping centre or another sort of cafe. They don't start clapping what's going on outside in the street. They don't step outside of the counter and go outside into the shopping centre area and start encouraging people to incite violence. They don't do that. I've never seen that in a shopping centre. I've never seen that in any other street. I haven't seen that in Sydney. I haven't seen that anywhere. It's all about their business, and it's all about them doing business, but not getting involved in what's happening outside their business. And the point that I make, that Jack's Kebabs, their staff are behaving inappropriately and an unacceptable behaviour according to business practices. And, of course, that will get ironed out. But getting back to this, I think that Mission Save Australia, they've taken it all out of context. You know, we see on the news and we see things are happening, but we don't see the full picture. There is no racism going on here. You've got this guy called Adrian that he thinks he's above the law. He thinks he can take the law into his own hands. He thinks because he's an Aboriginal somehow he's been wronged by, and you know he thinks he's got a right to behave how he's behaving. Well, you know, that sort of behaviour does not wash and is not acceptable. There is a right forum and there is a wrong forum for this, and I'm just quite devastated that how this sets Australia back to the point that we need to have unity, and we need to start to realise how lucky this country is, and to stop these silly things. But people must realise that this Aboriginal elder challenges the Christian preacher. He wasn't challenging me at all. He was annoyed because he wasn't allowed to break the law. He wasn't allowed to set up in an illegal busking site. And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And I'm sure that the Gold Coast City Council compliance officers would only back me up to the point saying that buskers must operate within a allocated busker site. They are not to be setting up their busker site in an illegal busking site which is not allocated. This person was setting up in an illegal busker site. I believe that his wife was packing up and willing to move to an allocated busker site, but he wanted to take it one step further. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a very sad day for Australia for somebody that is supposed to be a role model and is supposed to behave appropriately. He's not behaving appropriately, and the law is there to protect and to also protect the public, to also have law and order. And it doesn't matter who you are, there must be law and order. And I will endeavour to take this up further. But remembering I'm not the only people in Service Paradise that do public speaking. This mission Save Australia says an Aboriginal busker has a licence to work in Cavalmore. The Christians are coming in with their foghorns and are illegal operating in Cavalmore. No, we're not illegally operating in Cavalmore. As I said, the other Christians have a public speaking assemblies permit. They have an assemblies permit by the Queensland Police and a civil assemblies permit, and I have a permit from the Gold Coast City Council. And I am sure, according to the Gold Coast City Council, the Hare Krishnas that are also do their wonderful displays and etc., they also are legally there. But I would say to the Hare Krishnas, according to Mission Save Australia on Facebook, they are basically saying that the Christians are coming, this is quote and unquote them, the Christians are coming in with their foghorns and are illegally operating in Cavalmore. No, they're not. They're not illegally operating in Cavalmore. I rebut that, and that is false information. And that is somewhat Mission Save Australia is basically spreading hatred, religious intolerance, racial intolerance, and is basically just trying to drum up business and make themselves noted. But I can reassure you that the federal government will be placed on notice about this. The state government will be placed on notice about this. The Minister for Aboriginal Affairs will be placed on notice about this, because this is just unacceptable within our country, that we are a free country. And we do not need to have, and I know we have freedom of speech, and freedom of speech is good. And I will never want to see that disappear. But if people are going to behave like what is happening right now, I think that somewhat we erode our freedom of speech. But an Aboriginal elder challenges a Christian preacher, that's false. That is a false title. An Aboriginal elder challenges a Christian preacher because he's annoyed about not getting away with doing something illegally and setting up in a busker, a non-designated busker site. That's what he's annoyed about, and that's what he's talking about. He thinks because he's an Aboriginal, he can do whatever he wants, go wherever he likes, and do whatever he wants. And I'm sure that eventually get the wrong judge, the wrong person, he'll be in trouble. Because the simple fact is, no one is above the law, and I've realised that this is not about race, it is not about religion, it is not about all these other things. It's about people being intolerant and not willing to obey the law and not willing to do the right thing. The right thing is, this man should have just said, right, we're in an illegal busker site, a non-allocated busker site, we'll move from here, which I think his wife was going to do, and just keep going. The question also is, he's busking, and then he stops, and then he says, oh, beware of the Christians. And then he bags me out, which is called defamation, destroying a person's character. He's actually deflammatoring people and being quite inappropriate. How can people entertain that? How can people put up with that? International visitors, the international tourism minister, the tourism minister for each state. Do you want people to come into Cavalmore and have an Aboriginal man there playing the didgeridoo and saying, oh, watch out for the Christians in Cavalmore? You know, they are preaching a false message and doing all this. How would Adrian would like me to say, watch out for the black man, that is racist, that's intolerable, that's unacceptable, that's vilification. I won't do that. Everybody has a right to do what they have to do, and there must be tolerance. Tolerance and acceptable behaviour. Not intolerance, but acceptable and tolerable and tolerance towards other people. Having tolerance. And when you have tolerance and a good understanding of what people are about, then you can work together. And if you don't get along, that's fine, but you have some understanding. And when you have some understanding, you've built some sort of bridge. The simple fact is, I don't believe two wrongs don't make a right. Two wrongs do not make a right. And in this case, this comes down to one thing. Adrian set up in a non-designated buskers site. Ask the Gold Coast City Council, is neither water fountain and neither phone box, is that a buskers site? They will tell you no. And if a busker had set up there, regardless of who it is, then somebody has the right to say, hey, you are setting up in an illegal buskers site, could you please move to another buskers site? There is nothing wrong with that. As far as I'm concerned, we know right from wrong. So it is a matter of doing what is right and not what is wrong. It's not a matter of saying, well, I'm doing something that's wrong and now I'm going to take it one step further and behave inappropriately and unacceptable. I'll allow the Australian people to make their decision. But I have Aboriginal family. I have Fijian Indian family. I am not racist. And I have come from a dysfunctional background. At the end of the day, what I say is that if we start to allow disunity and to start to allow favouritism and say, well, this man is an Aboriginal, so he's got more rights than this person that is white or Fijian Indian or whatever. This Aboriginal's got more rights. No, he doesn't. He's got the same rights as everybody else, because that creates a unity, not a division, not a divide. It creates a unity of peace. But when you start to separate and divide, then that creates a canyon. The Aboriginal's here and the white man's here, and the white man's saying, hey, hang on for a minute, what's going on here? He's allowed to do this and he's allowed to break the law and he's allowed to do this. No, he's not allowed to break the law. All this had to do with he set up in an illegal busker site. Go to the Gold Coast City Council and say, outside of Hungry Jack's where the phone boxes are and the water fountain is and that pole with the camera on it, ask them, is that actually an allocated legal busker site? They will tell you no. And if someone wishes to make to their attention what was going on and that they were illegally busking, and of course, Linda, the wife, chose to pack up and was actually going to move because they were aware now that someone was informing of that. What is such a big deal? If we're going to allow this sort of unruly behaviour where, oh, well, what's the point of having permits? What's the point of having insurance? Go to the Service Paradise Gold Coast Alliance. Go to the Service Paradise Alliance, which is above the transport centre where the buses come in and all that, the transport hub. They're above that, upstairs. Go and ask them, is the telephone boxes, the water fountain, and where that pole is, where the camera is, where people drink with water at Hungry Jack's there, go and ask them, is that an allocated busker site? It is not a busker site. And they'll also say that they do not send a policy. If you go to the Gold Coast Alliance or the Gold Coast City Council and ask for a permit, the rule is you cannot start busking and bagging out other groups or vilifying other people. You don't vilify other people. You don't stand there and play your didgeridoo, and when you finish playing your didgeridoo, you go, oh, folks, you've got to watch out for those Christians in Cavilmore. And then he goes to say, oh, this guy reads from a book, so what would he know? Well, the Prime Minister of Australia reads from a book. in prominent Aboriginal leaders read from a book. What would they know according to Adrian Garabungi? Excuse me, I can't get his Adrian Beragubbi. What would he know? You have to read a book. And you have to somewhat determine and somewhat discern whether this is fact or whether this is not. The fact of the matter is that this guy is getting out of control. He's allowed to go around vilifying people, to incite violence, to incite racist remarks, to incite people to become angry. And I don't think that the Gold Coast Mayor Tate of the Gold Coast City Council wants people to have buskers permits that incite people to racial vilification or religious vilification and actually incite. So he's playing his didgeridoo, and when he's finished playing it, he's got his mic, he's got his thing, and he starts talking about beware of Christians in the Cavill Moor. And then he starts to vilify them, racially, religiously vilifying them. And in New South Wales, they have vilification laws in New South Wales. Lucky he's not in New South Wales. I don't understand, but I am sure the Aboriginal elders of everywhere in Australia say, as Aboriginal elders, we don't go around vilifying other religious beliefs. We do not go around vilifying other religious people or racial taunts or what have you. We respect all people. And Aboriginal people will say that if we don't respect, the Aboriginal elders would say, if we do not respect all people, then we're only not helping our cause and we're rewinding the clock back. Because what we need to do is we need to show a good example and set a good example. Not sit there, play your didgeridoo, and then when you finish playing your didgeridoo, you say, hey, you know, there's Christians in this moor, you've got to be careful of them. I'm not preaching the word of God, I'm not preaching the good news, and then turning around and going, hey, there's an Aboriginal man over there, you should be careful of him. No. And for the record straight, if you listen to this video, you'll hear him saying, I don't need to take money off people. I don't need to take people's money. That's quote and unquote Adrian. You know what? He's taking people's money. He's selling CDs. He's selling CDs in Cavill Moor. He's taking people's money. But not only taking money, he's actually making fun of other people. He's vilifying people. He's being racist. He's inciting violence. And the last thing is, I want to do that. He's also encouraging Jack's Kebab to join in. The staff of Jack's Kebabs are behaving in a racial and religious vilification because they start clapping their hands and they start carrying on inappropriately. International visitors are seeing this. International visitors are seeing the behaviour. And as I said, I will be talking with the shopping centres management in Melbourne. They come under different laws to what they come in Queensland. And if a challenge is taken in Victoria, you have the Charter of Human Rights in Victoria. And you also have the Equal Opportunity Human Rights Commission. And what I'm saying is, I never seen in my life a business behave wrongfully like Jack's Kebab staff, clapping their hands and applauding and actually getting involved. They might as well close the doors of their business and come out of their business and join in the crowd and not give them such a bad name. I think that what has to happen here is Jack's Kebabs need to mind their own business, stop getting involved in other people's business, go about their business selling their kebabs, and stop interfering and stop being seen to be involved in racial vilification, in religious intolerance, and all these other things because they just don't like one person. That is wrong. And that is not going to help anyone's cause. That is only going to make things go backwards. So Jack's Kebabs, what I understand of this matter is, you need to behave appropriately. And if you do not behave appropriate, then I will be taking this matter even further. The simple fact is, you've got to look at the social justice in the bigger picture. There are international visitors and there are people around that are watching your staff at Jack's Kebabs and how they behave. Ethically, professionally, as employees of Jack's Kebabs. You know, the people in McDonald's and Hungry Jack's and KFC and all that, their staff must behave in an ethical manner. Why is the staff in Jack's Kebab is allowed to behave unethically, not in a professional manner, and is allowed to behave in a way that encourages and incites people to racism and also to intolerance and incites them to behave inappropriately? The fact of the matter is enough. I will be dealing with this matter in the appropriate manner, not like this man carrying on, because that's unacceptable behaviour. I will deal with it with the right authorities. The simple fact is, for the record, this Aboriginal elder was not challenging me and was not challenging me as a preacher. He was challenging the Gold Coast City Council's authority. He was challenging the Queensland government, because what he was doing was saying, I'm entitled to set up a busker, my busker site, in a non-allocated busker site. I'm entitled by the law to do whatever I want because I'm Aboriginal. And if I want to set up my busker site in a non-allocated busker site, I will do so. And I don't care what anyone else says. If you don't like it, well then I'm going to get cross with you. And I'm going to behave inappropriately. I think that's quite downright silly. We need peace and we need unity. We need tolerance. Because if there's no tolerance and no peace and no unity, tolerance is the first thing. And if you have tolerance, then that starts building the bridge. Tolerance starts building a bridge. Having a good dialogue of communication starts building that bridge of tolerance and understanding. We don't need to rewind the clock back. We don't need to have a setback to the point where that there is some major issues happening. We need to start behaving appropriately and acceptable, not creating a religious intolerance of people just because of somebody else's opinion. Thank you.